Today, the Prime Minister said that artificial intelligence is a defining opportunity of our generation as he set out plans to use the technology to boost growth. At a speech in London, he acknowledged concerns. Yeah, there are some concerns. But he said the battle for jobs of tomorrow is happening today. But what is the government AI plan and how will it affect your private data? Well, let's talk to Mal Fletcher now, a futurist, the futurist for me, to talk about this. Mal, we've had many a conversation about AI. I felt the Prime Minister was quite blasé about the concerns today. I thought he was extremely blasé about privacy and equally not answering questions on whether he's going to monetise the NHS data, which, of course, he is.
Yes, hi, Petrie.
Hi.
Good to be with you again. Look, our Prime Minister sounds blasé, I think, even when he's not. But just the other day, I happened to be speaking with an MP about AI, and he told me quite honestly he didn't know much about it, but was eager to learn more. And he's not alone. You only have to look at the questions MPs ask in parliamentary committee sessions to see how little most of them know about the ethical issues that AI raises, like data privacy, and how quickly AI is actually developing. And now, today, we're being asked to believe that this government can guarantee our privacy, as you were saying. It's wanting to open its data banks to AI developers, and we're being asked to believe that big tech can and will basically regulate itself when it comes to AI. What's more, it seems the government's betting big time on the fact that AI will, at least in the short term, add more than it takes away on the employment front. And we know that techs do lead to new types of work. But with AI, the question is, can we adjust quickly enough to take advantage of those jobs before they're gone too? Now, I'm no Luddite. You and I know each other a bit. I'm an advocate for AI, and I'm pleased the government's prioritising tech. But its plans are pushing way ahead of the capacity of either government or the public to understand AI, or even to talk about how we're going to generate the massive amounts of energy that are needed to sustain it.
That was going to be my next point, is that it feels to me like they're putting the cart before the horse, because we're going to need multiple high-powered nuclear generators to provide enough fuel for these data centres. Plus, I was hearing the other day that they will use up half of the water, of Britain's water, just to generate the energy to fuel these places. There's been nothing said about increasing our water security, nothing that's been said about how soon these small nuclear power stations they're talking about can be built and will be built. And yet we're supposed to believe that this AI technology can run on windmills.
Yes, well, it won't be run on renewables, not at the scale they're talking about. In fact, even the scale we use today, we're falling behind now with energy provision. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of those data banks they keep talking about, those data farms. We have one about 5 minutes from our home where I'm sitting right now, and it looks like Starlag 13. I mean, they're the most ugly stains on the landscape that you can think of. And I happen to know that they're looking at building a whole bunch of them out where we are. So we're not too happy about that. But what's happening, I think, is government is getting enthusiastic about tech without the healthy degrees of skepticism that have to be added to that enthusiasm, so that AI offers us more than just economic gain, which is what the Prime Minister's on about. It needs to promote also the common good on many other levels, such as human rights and human autonomy and privacy and the security of data. I mean, imagine that a foreign power that has ill intent toward the UK were able to get a hold of the data, even the anonymised data, if it were to be so, and the patterns that they could spot in that, and they could then decide to target us in the areas of our health vulnerabilities, perhaps with the NHS. So there could be disastrous results that we haven't even given thought to yet.
I was going to come to that about privacy. And it beggars belief to me that a Prime Minister can stand in front of the nation and promise that it will always be in control of that data, because you and I both know that once it ends up on AI, it is no longer controllable. It isn't controllable by anybody, by any human being. So how is he expecting us to believe that this so-called anonymised data, which I know for a fact has to be not very anonymised to be useful, right? You need somebody's age, you need somebody's gender, you need to know where somebody lives, because that has perhaps not their address, but certainly the area in which they live. It is very simple to work out, I've had people do it before, who those people are, this so-called anonymised data. And once it's out there, it's out there. How are we meant to believe that our privacy and our security is going to be protected when it can't be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why we should trust any government at the moment, because they're not up to date with AI. That's what concerns me. And it's not just the collection of the data and the storage of it, it's the fact that it's being used in certain ways. I mean, we know that there could be great benefits, for example, in the NHS with surgical robots. But there are questions we haven't asked yet, and the government isn't asking yet, about ethical questions about whether AI-powered robots make ethical decisions in complex situations. And as robots and things like that become more integrated into our lives and our health services, for example, how can we trust them to keep our data private, those individual entities? It's vital that we emphasize transparency, accountability, and human values in the way we use AI and the way we use data to develop AI.
I mean, it's kind of like the autonomous cars that they wanted to use, and giving them a moral judgment. If you're going down the road and there's a 90-year-old man who might be the greatest poet that ever lived walking down the road, and there's a young mother and her child, which one do you run down? And the car will go for the 90-year-old because it doesn't have the moral judgment or whatever to be able to make those decisions correct. Not that I'm suggesting they should mow down the child and the baby, but the point is that if it's left to a computer to decide, then where is this human touch that, again, the Prime Minister was talking about?
Yeah, that's true. And I think the whole area of using AI to develop things like robots and implants, human implants, all of that could be very helpful with treatments. But we have to ask the big question, the biggest question of all, I think, with all of this is, where do we draw the line between human and machine? As we increasingly invite tech into our bodies with things like neural implants, we lose sight of what sets humanity apart from its tools. Is that line even important anymore? I happen to think it is, and I think a lot of people will. There are also questions about informed consent, about use of data, and the use of data to create AIs. For example, with brain implants, how do we know that an aging person has given their consent to receive this kind of treatment? There's the question of access to technology that comes out of this. Are we creating new technology gaps with AI so that you have the AI haves and the AI have-nots, those who have access and those who don't? And once again, that question of susceptibility to cyber attack, either from outside governments or terrorist units, or just people in corporate life who want to take our data without our permission. And technology creep, you and I have talked about before, where we introduce a tech for one purpose and it's very quickly used for another purpose over which we have no control and to which we haven't consented. So I'm not against putting AI and its technologies high on the list of priorities, but I don't think we can be promising things we can't deliver unless we've discussed the ramifications of data usage and AI.
Now, the Prime Minister also said, look, he is, if we don't get ahead of this, then we're behind it. And I kind of understand that in business terms. But the danger of racing ahead with no control. So Rishi Sunak, the last government, they started this conversation about the dangers of AI, and we need to understand it fully, and we need to understand what's going to happen with it. Is there a point at which we will understand what AI can and will do, because again, once it begins to learn by itself without our help, for example, then we don't know where it's going to go. So will we ever feel safe? Will we ever have a security network around us?
Well, I think we'll get more familiar with AI products and tools over time. We are already in some regards. But take, for example, what we call healthcare autonomous robots. These are robots working in the healthcare system, or they will be, that can make some decisions on their own. They'll use what we call AI agents, these programs that call upon hundreds of online tools to help them make decisions without much human intervention. And hospitals could even use humanoid robots like Tesla's Optimus robot, which has a sort of human appearance to it to some degree. They could be used and be very helpful in therapy and aftercare. But when that happens, administrators and technologists will really need to take into account the mental health impact of human-like machines. We have a thing we know in psychology called the uncanny valley effect. When we first interact with a machine that looks and acts like a human, our first reaction is mostly positive, if only because of the novelty of it. But as the machine's capabilities become more and more human-like, we feel a growing sense of unease, and that uncanny feeling can lead to anxiety and even depression and many other health issues that we know of. So it's those sorts of things that we're going to have to look at, and we haven't really even begun yet to dig into them.
What would be the greatest concern for right now with all these data centres being built and all this information? I mean, my fear is that this NHS information gets into the hands of insurers. I've said that, and it's not beyond reason to believe that could happen. But AI will be used against us as much as it'll be used for us. For example, AI tracking our movements, AI issuing tickets, AI punishing us, AI, and without that human aspect, not being able to figure out if what we'd done wrong was actually for good or for bad. For example, stopping to pick up a woman who's fallen over and getting a parking ticket, right? A human being could see that was necessary. The AI will just say, no, you stopped and that's it. You're getting the fine. So that fear for me is that it will be used as much against us as it will be for us.
Well, there is that danger, and that's why we need to have those widespread or broad umbrella debates about the ethics of AI. We haven't done that yet. We've had technicians meeting with government officials in talk fests that are closed off to anybody else. There are no biologists, there are no philosophers, there are no engineers, there are no architects, there are no theologians. No one else is allowed into those discussions, which are really talking about what it means to be human, as I said before. So there are benefits that we'll get from AI, but they'll only come as we set limits, not just through regulation, but through widely agreed systems of ethics. Government and tech developers will need to take a lot more care to explain what AI might bring and under what conditions. And it hasn't done anything like that yet. As I said, governments have to mix enthusiasm about tech with healthy amounts of skepticism so that AI offers us more than economic gain. That's what scientists are doing. People that invented AI have greeted it in some regards with enthusiasm and then mixed it with skepticism when they realise how much power it might have.
Mal, it's always fascinating to talk to you, although I don't sleep very easily after I've done so. Good to speak to you, Mal Fletcher, Futurist.